Globalists are hotter than the Arizona sunshine on Trump's new wall. We're going to talk about it and immigration coming up on the Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for being a part of the Hot Zone. We've been talking about Haiti for the last couple of days, and I just wanted to kind of finish up on that because when you look at what's going on between Haiti and its neighbor on Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, over the years, hundreds of thousands of Haitians have crossed into the Dominican Republic looking for a better life because Haiti is basically the worst place in the Western Hemisphere. And if you were born there, you really drew the short end of the stick when it came to be places to live. So it's not surprising that hundreds of thousands of Haitians have crossed into the Dominican Republic. And it's also not surprising that the Dominicans have not been real happy about that, even going back to the 1920s. As a matter of fact, there's a little known massacre that happened in the 1930s, 1933 to be exact, when the president of the Dominican Republic ordered basically a mass carnage, a mass killing of illegal Haitians in their country. And in that massacre, they killed more than 20,000 people. You got to go read up on that a little bit. I think there are probably very few people in America who know about that massacre, know that it happened. And the echoes of that are still reverberating today because one of the distant sons or grandsons of that president is now campaigning in the Dominican Republic right now for elected office on a very hard-line anti-immigrant policy. Now, I'm sure he's not going to condone another massacre like the one his great-great-grandfather did, but at the same time, that's got to make Haitians in the Dominican Republic be a little nervous. And in reality, is going back just a couple of years, I think 2014, the Parliament of the Dominican Republic passed a law that strips citizenship from naturalized Dominicans who were born to Haitian illegal immigrants. So they used to have anchor baby sort of policy like we have in the United States, that is birthright citizenship, where if you were born on Dominican soil, you were a Dominican citizen. And many countries around the world, well, a few countries around the world have that. Actually, not as many as you might think. And so there were a lot of illegal Haitians who crossed illegally into the Dominican Republic to have their babies. Their babies were then Dominican citizens. In 2014, the Dominican government stripped that citizenship from anybody who ever received it in that way. So what I'm saying is, if your grandfather or great-grandfather, going all the way back to 1929, had received birthright citizenship in the Dominican Republic because his parents came over from Haiti illegally, then you and all of your descendants will be stripped of your Dominican citizenship. And that means you can't vote. And obviously there's a lot of people that are not very happy about that. But because of the horrible situation going on in Haiti that we've been covering over the last couple of days, there are now, again, hundreds of thousands of Haitians trying to get across the border into the Dominican Republic and find food, find gasoline. They had one poor guy who, there's been a lot of gasoline smuggling where they go across into the Dominican Republic, they fill up their gas cans and put it on their motorcycle and drive it back across into Haiti to sell because there's no gas to be had in Haiti right now. One poor guy crashed on his motorbike and was engulfed in flames and killed. Horrific situation there. So the Dominican Republic now, as the politicians are talking about, guess what? Building a wall. They're talking about building a fence. So this is not, the whole wall narrative is not just Donald Trump. It's not something that Donald Trump invented. It's something that's being used as a deterrent around the world. I've seen walls being built on the borders between Hungary and Serbia, between Austria and Serbia, and between, Malawi and South Africa, between the United States and Mexico. So walls work at deterring people from coming across, and especially the walls that are actually being built on the U.S. southern border. Now, another thing you're not hearing a lot about from the mainstream media is that the wall is indeed being built, and there are already hundreds of miles of it going up. They're hoping to have nearly 500 miles by the end of next year, and they are working feverishly and putting this stuff up. And when you see it, you'll see why this wall is going to make a difference and may already be making a difference. Check this out.
We're located just past the Santa Teresa port of entry. We're at the tail end on the east end of the project, heading west. We've got about 330 panels up right now. The contractor, when he starts up, is he'll remove these stands for the panels after the concrete has set, and then he'll prepare his area by excavating for the trench. After he excavates, he places the steel mats inside the trench, and then he'll either do a full placement of concrete, which is bollard panels inserted, and then concrete. That's one lift. Or he'll do the two-stage placement, which is concrete up to just below the bollards, and then they'll place the bollard fence on top of the concrete and then do the second stage. The curing process to cure concrete on the surface is 7 days. We have a specification for 28-day compressive strength. And after that, if the concrete meets the compressive requirement, then that's the end of it. It's accepted.
Now, the Sierra Club and lots of other left-wing organizations have been just pulling their hair out over this whole narrative about the fact that the wall will damage the environment, that putting a wall across barren desert is going to just ruin the environment. And oh, the poor lizards and snakes and bunny rabbits that live out there, or the people who can't get across. And in episode 119, I played a little clip of a lady from the Sierra Club talking about how terrible this would be for the environment.
Sierra Club members are dedicated to protecting fragile ecosystems and long-standing communities on the southern border, and obviously building a 1,500-mile contiguous wall is certainly not going to help us in that endeavor. You know, there's many people that live all along the border who are threatened by this wall, and that's what our lawsuit's about.
But in reality, here's another story that you're not hearing in the mainstream media. The government, as they're putting in the wall, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is actually spending millions of dollars to relocate sensitive species. That's right, cactus.
Barrier construction continues along the southern border of the United States, near the border town of Lukeville, Arizona, September 19, 2019. As one team erects barrier panels, another team begins work relocating cacti that lies within the bounds of the barrier team's path.
We are relocating saguaro, Oregon pipe, ocotillo, sanita, beryl, and hedgehog cactuses. Additionally, we expect to be relocating agave plants within the area. There may be misconceptions that we are on a construction site and just not caring for the environment, just proceeding with work as planned. This isn't true. We're taking great care to take care of the protected species. We're transplanting the cacti within our construction bounds right in the immediate area in their natural habitat. These areas are confirmed and determined by our qualified arborist, who personally looks at each cacti location, where it exists as found and where we are going to place it.
We're trying to protect them, to keep them from being run over, mushed, squished, destroyed. And we're trying to move them out of the way of vehicular traffic and an easement. And we're trying to go about 10 feet back from that to protect them. People think that anything you do is wrong with them and illegal. And of course, the process of getting a permit legitimizes what you are going to do.
Thank you.
It's huge, it's in perfect condition.
It is, and it's a massive 10-foot.
There are native plant laws in Arizona that apply to the treatment of species of interest, and we comply with those with the guidance of our environmental monitors and our certified arborists.
Since 1937, this pristine example of Sonoran desert habitat has been preserved as one of the only places in the United States where Oregon pipe cactus grows wild.
There's a lot of different unique characteristics from these plants. They survive in a harsh environment with very little water available. They are sensitive to orientation and which way they're placed. We address that by carefully marking each one and setting them in the correct fashion. We are working with sensitive plants, and we are addressing those needs accordingly.
We do use some chemicals to treat the roots. For example, I use sulfur, and that's an antibiotic, and it also discourages organisms, and it does help the soil itself.
The Oregon Pipe Cactus National Monument is home to many types of cacti. Other desert flora are also native to this section of the Sonoran Desert region.
We're primarily moving the saguaros. We will also be addressing some of the smaller species, such as the hedgehog cactus. I particularly like to monitor after a transplant for approximately a year to see if they're leaning to one side or the other, or if there's something that is obvious about the actual planting of the cactus that's gone wrong. And we also sometimes, if it's exceptionally dry, try to supplement water.
We are also taking care to place cacti in the designated restoration areas which extend throughout the project's boundary. These restoration areas are monitored by National Park Services, and we're working with them to put some of our cacti relocations in those areas to help redevelop.
These efforts are just one more way USACE protects and restores many of our nation's ecosystems and remediates environmental damages for the benefit of future generations.
So it's pretty clear that the Trump administration, in spite of all of the obstacles and barricades that the left could put in his way, is being successful at building the barrier on the U.S. southern border. There's no two ways about it. All you have to do is look at the footage we've been showing you here from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and you can see those walls are going up and they are making a difference. So we've seen the number of apprehensions go down in August, and part of that is the barrier, I think, but part of it is also the fact that the Trump administration finally had some success with the Supreme Court in implementing the policy that forces people coming up from the South into the United States illegally to ask for asylum at the border and then wait in Mexico while their asylum claims are processed. For its part, the United Nations is whining and complaining that this policy is actually being effective and stopping illegals from crossing illegally into our country. And so listen to what the UN had to say.
We have stated our views on this policy clearly and publicly, and may I remind you of our statement on the 15th of July. There was a press release on this matter, and we regret the impact that the implementation will have on asylum seekers. We reiterate that any person fleeing violence or persecution must be able to access full and effective asylum procedures and international protection. Our concern is with the people, families, unaccompanied children, and other individuals moving through Mexico today from Central America and elsewhere who are in urgent need of safe haven. It is imperative that those people be identified quickly and afforded the safety and assistance that they need and they deserve, including the right to seek asylum.
So I find it kind of annoying that the UN can talk like that when It's not their money that's going to have to be spent to take care of these people when they come into the United States. It's U.S. taxpayer dollars that are going to be supporting these migrants to the tune of millions and literally billions of dollars. I mean, the Fellowship for American Immigration Reform says that it's costing American taxpayers like $160 billion a year. That could build a lot of walls, by the way, on illegal immigrations. That is, illegal immigrants living in the United States and taking police resources, medical resources, education resources from the U.S. taxpayer at U.S. taxpayer expense. So forgive me if I don't, sing a sad song for the United Nations when they whine and complain that Trump's policies on illegal immigration are actually being effective. Now, Trump called out the open borders activists very forcefully in his speech to the United Nations last week. And of course, it was not covered in the mainstream media very well because they didn't want you to hear this speech. But I do. So here you go.
These groups encourage illegal migration and demand erasure of national borders. Today, I have a message for those open border activists who cloak themselves in the rhetoric of social justice. Your policies are not just. Your policies are cruel and evil. You are empowering criminal organizations that prey on innocent men, women, and children. You put your own false sense of virtue before the lives, well-being, and countless innocent people. When you undermine border security, you are undermining human rights and human dignity.
Okay, folks, thanks for watching the podcast today. That's all I've got for you. Hope you enjoyed it. You're definitely seeing stuff here that you're not seeing on the mainstream news. So you're welcome. Have a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.